episode of Bay Area Boxing Talk. I'm your host, Town Biz, man, coming out of that east side. Gonna do a quick stream. Not gonna be too long. Try to keep this under 10 minutes because I'm headed to the gym. I do want to talk about last night's fights. Um, for the most part, hey, it was a solid card. I think Adam Kronowski, um, he didn't lost 3 fights in a row. Um, I'm not gonna say he should retire, but at the end of the day, I think he needs to take a couple of tune-up fights or find a couple of you know B-level fighters to fight to get back in there and build his confidence up. Because for the most part, he got thoroughly beaten. And as far as the first fight with Bartholomew and Russell, premature stoppage, but it looked like Russell was on his way to get the stoppage anyway. And Russell, I give him credit for his resilience because he got rocked a couple of times and he bounced back. And it was a solid fight, man, up until the end. So more than likely, they should run it back. I think that'll be a good fight to put on a pay-per-view. Make it like, when you open up the pay-per-view, you open it up once again with that fight. So I think they're gonna run it back, and I think that's the right thing to do. So let me talk about Danny Garcia, and once again and of course I'm gonna talk about what happened with Jake Paul and Hasim Rahman Jr. As far as Danny Garcia go, I thought Danny Garcia looked solid at 154 for his debut versus Jose Benavidez Jr. And mostly everybody gave him his props, and they called it an impressive performance. Now, it's kind of funny because I am going to bring this up, but once again, you have to question some of these content creators and how these dudes are inconsistent and how, like I said, they wishy-washy with some of their takes on certain fights and certain fighters. Now, all of a sudden, this was a great performance, get-back fight for Danny Garcia, and he looked great and sharp and all that stuff. But when you think about it, once again, you have to say this about Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia fought a dude that Terrence Crawford stopped. And Danny Garcia had several chances to fight Terrence Crawford, and he refused to fight him. And the funny thing was, when Terrence Crawford beat Jose Benavidez, they said he was a one-legged fighter, and they brought up the stuff about he got shot and all this kind of stuff. And like I said, once again, this came from people that look like Terrence Crawford. So once again, this exposes just basically the hatred and the contempt a lot of people have for Terrence Crawford, and how they just want to discredit him no matter what, because as I said before, they think he is a serious threat to the big fish. So like I said, of course I was going to put this out there. I got to be the one that open up these conversations. See, I'm not worried about backlash and none of that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, Danny Garcia could have fought the dude that Terrence Crawford stopped. And he was offered $3 billion to fight Terrence Crawford. And once again, he took less money to fight Adrian Granados instead of fighting Terrence Crawford. And Terrence Crawford had a belt at the time, so it would have been a title shot. So, he beats Terrence Crawford, then, hey, once again, at that time, if I'm not mistaken, the PBC pretty much has all 4 of the belts. But he had every excuse in the book why he couldn't fight Terrence Crawford. Oh, call Al Heyman, all this kind of stuff. Now, will Danny Garcia get Tony Harrison next? I doubt it. Oh, appreciate the donation, man. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate it. So now the question is, will Danny Garcia get a title shot versus Lara? You have to say, okay, well, this is his debut, but anything happen. He has to, you know what I'm saying? He has the name. Danny Garcia, I don't know how many people was in attendance for that fight. Danny Garcia has some drawing power. Is he ready for Charlo? Absolutely not. Could Danny Garcia beat somebody like Castanos? I don't think so. Like I said before in the first live stream, I might would put Danny Garcia in the ring with Lubin to see what's left of Lubin. I would take a chance and make that fight to see, do Lubin have anything left in the tank. I think that's a fight for Danny Garcia. That's just real talk. I know people gonna say, well, Lubin would be coming off a loss. Well, it's not like that ain't the first time that's ever happened. I mean, keep in mind, like I said, Errol Spence got all the praise in the world for beating Kell Brook, who was coming off a loss. So, why not? I mean, it's an easy fight to make. I would see Wesley win that fight. And Lubin, in the past, shown to be a little bit chinny. Lubin has been hurt in several fights. So why not? Danny Garcia isn't ready for Charlo. I don't think he's ready for Tony Harrison. As far as Jared Hurd go, I think Jared Hurd moved up to 160. So I would test the waters with that, because he definitely isn't ready for Charlo. Definitely isn't ready. Just like David Benavidez admitted that, hey, I'm not ready for Arthur Beterbiev. I would need 2 fights at least before I go up there and try to fight Arthur Beterbiev. And I think that's a smart decision on David Benavidez's part. David Benavidez basically said, hey, he's looking at David Morale, Caleb Plant, or Charlo. If I was a gambling man, they might give him David Morale. They might give him David Morale. That'll be an exciting fight. And I think, to be honest with you, I think David Benavidez, I would favor him in all 3 of those fights. But I think Morale would be probably the most winnable fight for Benavidez. I think that's the most, you know how you have options, but then you have the most winnable fight. I think Morale would be the most winnable fight. And then he has somewhat of a title. So I think that would, well, he has somewhat of a title, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that would be an interesting fight. I would be interested in checking out that fight. All right, so now let me get to Jake Paul and Hasim Rahman. As you guys know, the fight was canceled. And of course, Jake Paul went on social media talking this cachet stuff like, oh, nobody wants to fight me. And at the end of the day, the only people that believe what Jake Paul was trying to sell is his naive YouTube followers who don't know boxing. At the end of the day, there was a lot of reports going out that the fight was selling very poorly. They're saying that fight was selling very poorly. The numbers of tickets that were supposed to have been sold was atrocious. So probably by the time the fight came around, you would have just saw a lot of empty seats in Madison Square Garden. And at the end of the day, they just was like, you know what, forget it. Then not to mention, there were some other things that they possibly wanted Hasim Rahman Jr. to go swimming, and he refused to go swimming. Then it was the issue of the weight. Look, Jake Paul gave that dude that fight basically on 3 weeks' notice. He knew damn well that dude wasn't going to be able to get to no 200 pounds. He knew it. And then Jake Paul apparently sits up there and try to play, the catalyst for getting MMA fighters paid more money. And then I heard what he paid Hasim Rahman wasn't even remotely close to what he was going to give Tommy Fury. Then he sits up there and posts on social media that Tommy Fury pulled out of the fight because he was scared. Tommy Fury had to pull out of the fight because he wasn't going to get a visa to be able to come into the States. And I think, once again, Jake Paul knew that as well. So, both of this could have been capped. Jake Paul, to me, showed that he wasn't confident. And I think Jake Paul knew what was coming. I think that Rahman was going to splatter him. He knew it. His team. All you got to do is look at the pictures. Look how Logan Paul is looking when they doing the face-off. Look at the size. Jake Paul knew that he was going to get beat up. Trust me, this is a sign of relief. When they said, hey, we can't do 205, why don't we do 215? Well, here's the thing. Rahman at one time weighed like upwards of 270. Rahman weighed at one time for a fight like, or he walks around at 270. So you really thought this dude was going to be able to get down to 200 pounds? And then, or even 205 pounds. Why not just fight the dude at the 215 since you say you was going to knock him out? If weight wasn't that big of a deal, I mean, Benavidez blew up to like 172, and that didn't help him versus Danny Garcia. So why not just let the dude come in at 215? They knew the man couldn't make. I mean, basically, you gave the man like 3 weeks to try to get down to 200 pounds, and you knew the dude wasn't gonna be able to do it. And you also knew the fight was selling poorly. And then there was also a rumor that you tried to get the dude to do some deep sea diving. And when he didn't do it, you said, okay, we're just going to pull the plug on the fight. If anybody hasn't seen what Jake Paul is trying to do, then I don't know what to tell you. He isn't really trying to fight a real fighter. And I think now this is getting tired with anybody with common boxing sense. This is just common boxing sense. They was looking for a way to get out of this fight. And due to the fact that they knew Rahman wasn't going to be able to make 205, let alone 200, for a guy that walks around probably at, like I said, 260 pounds. Well, what you expect? This is just cap. This was a ploy. This wasn't nothing but a fake publicity stunt. They giving everybody a full refund. And from what I heard, they ain't got much money to give back based off how many tickets this fight is sold. So let's just keep it a buck. I'm not one of these media people that sit up here and sugarcoat stuff. Everybody knew what was going on. Hasim Rahman was going to beat Jake Paul's ass. He was going to probably knock him out within 2 rounds. And he was going to hurt Jake Paul. And Jake Paul needed a way to get out of this fight. Nobody cares about. I got a letter from Jake Paul, regarding my credentials, what happened with the fight and all this kind of stuff. Even they saying even a commission didn't think that Rahman would go into that fight healthy. And they didn't like his conditioning, and they didn't like the way he was possibly going to try to make weight. So Jake Paul knew that. He just wanted a way out of that fight. Jake Paul just wanted a way out of that fight. He knew what was coming. and he was like, I gotta get out of I gotta get out of this fight. I'm gonna get humiliated. I'm gonna get beat up. So Jake Paul will find some MMA fighter to fight, or another NBA basketball player to fight, or some other YouTuber that don't have no boxing experience, or he may fight some random dude. But after 5 fights, you should already be tired of this. We already know what's going on with this dude. That's why I was laughing when he said, oh, I'm going to take Canelo out in 2 years. Man, Canelo probably ain't even going to be fighting in 2 years. If Jake Paul is really serious about fight, why don't Jake Paul say, you know what? I'll fight somebody like Caleb Plant. We can meet at a catch weight of 180. And then Jake Paul will get his ass beat. If anybody haven't figured out what Jake Paul is doing, I don't know what to tell you. And then another thing, you just have to say that as much as I like Stephen Espinosa, and I like Stephen Espinosa, and I'm trying not to talk bad about Stephen Espinosa, you guys, because you know what? Stephen Espinosa has always granted me an interview when I requested it. But at the end of the day, they need to stop this stuff too. Stop backing this dude. He's not selling any pay-per-views. He doesn't really sell tickets, because I heard his last fight they gave away a whole bunch of tickets. And Showtime is killing their credibility by even putting this stuff on, and then making people pay for this stuff. Putting this on pay-per-views. They're not turning a profit putting this dude on pay-per-view. So why are you doing this stuff? And like I said, Stephen Espinosa, that's the homie, but I gotta call him out. Like, stop putting this stuff on TV, man. Why are you killing your credibility, man? By putting this dude on pay-per-view. You struggling to get the fight that everybody want to see. But you trying to get us to pay X amount, and that's what I'm saying. You want to put this dude on pay-per-view, but then you struggling to get the real fight that everybody wants to see put on pay-per-view? Who did they think was going to fork out 50, 60, 70 bucks to see this dude fight? And then fight a relatively unknown fighter? Like, come on, man. Like I said, Rahman ain't new. Rahman was going to go in there and they was going to shellac Jake Paul. Jake Paul was going to get shellacked, and he just was looking for a way to get it. You had already heard a few days before the actual cancellation that they was going to cancel this fight. You heard that they was going to cancel this fight anyway because of possible low ticket sales. This fight wasn't selling. It wasn't selling. And once again, they needed a way to get out of this fight, because by the time the pay-per-view rolled around, you would have saw Madison Square Garden darkened. You would have saw the scenery darkened because it wasn't nobody there. So it would have just been embarrassing. And then just like with Ryan Garcia, you heard he didn't really sell a lot of tickets. So you already know that Jake Paul don't got really no drawing power unless he give away a whole bunch of tickets. They comp a whole bunch of tickets. So like I said before, you fighting in the mecca of boxing. You fighting at Madison Square Garden. They would have been better off trying to put this fight at the Hulu Theater instead of trying to put this at Madison Square Garden. And that's just the real reason they pulled out of this fight. For a lot of different reasons. 3 in particular reasons. 1, the fight wasn't selling. Jake Paul's camp just had reservations. They didn't think they really was going to win that fight. And then 2, they couldn't get Rahman allegedly to go swimming for the fight. So there you have it. But anyway, let me start my workout. I'll be back with more. I'm out. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the donations.